Welcome to the Monster Report, a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. I'm your host, Nick Adam Poling, and joining me today is Andrew Costa. Say hi, Andrew.
Good to see everyone.
Yeah, so it's good to have you on the show, and this is, of course, a show where we talk about monsters, but some of our other interests out there, of course, can be in sci-fi. Aliens can be monsters. I did a Star Trek episode not too long ago.
So remind me about the three last Star Trek movies.
Yeah?
What were the I'm not even calling them to mind yet.
The monsters in the last Star Trek movies?
At least the first one. The first one were Abrams.
The first Abrams one, the 2009 Star Trek, they had Romulans in there, and of course when they had an ice planet that looked very much like Hoth in Star Wars, that Spock's character just had to have a little fire to...
Did they have a name for that thing?
I don't think they had a name. The Star Trek gurus out there can probably comment in the section below, tell us exactly what that monster's name was, but yeah, that was just a simple monster on that, I think it was Abrams's, his application to Disney or Lucasfilm to get the job for Force Awakens.
Well, it worked out. So.
It worked out for him in the end, yeah.
And I'll say this, before Abrams was doing anything Star Wars, I liked his Star Trek reboot so much, and I hated the prequels so much, that I was like, you know what, I think I'm done with Star Wars, I'm going to switch over to Star Trek. And so at that point, I just started calling myself a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
I didn't actually watch any Star Trek, but I was like, well, I'll at least tell people that I like Star Trek more than Star Wars, which was very heretical for me at the time.
Yeah.
I'm back on the bandwagon. I'm back with Star Wars.
Good.
We made up. We kissed and made up after Episode 7, and Rogue One, like I said last time we gathered, second best Star Wars property out there, in my opinion.
Well, and that's the cool thing about both Star Trek and Star Wars is that there are creatures, monsters, you can call them monsters, some things you might call creatures and not monsters, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, and not necessarily like we have an outline for this show. We could end up talking about our kids or our pets at a certain point in this episode, so bear with us, guys.
My kids are monsters when you think about the traditional, breed mayhem, not necessarily able to bring themselves under control.
Yeah.
Purely instinctual creatures. The only difference between my children and most monsters on shows, monsters in TV and movies will usually eat anything.
Right.
My kids won't eat anything.
Uh-huh.
And so, where the world will celebrate if you kill monsters, you go to prison if you kill your kids.
Well, yeah.
And I'm not out to kill my kids. They're just slowly dying of malnutrition because they've chosen not to eat anything. So,
but anything sweet, of course. No
problem,
yeah,
of course. I mean, yeah.
Sweet sugary candy, and
if there's a way to maintain nutritional status from Pixie Sticks, then my kids are going to be just fine.
Yeah, but as far as let's talk some Star Wars. Actually, with Rogue One coming out not too long, and we from the time of this taping, and of course before that we had Force Awakens, and even taking in the prequels, the original trilogy, the extended universe and comic book series, even the video games. We've got a variety of different creatures. Some you might even get the chance to call monsters in the Star Wars universe. If you just think off the top of your head, one of the interesting either creatures or monsters that really just comes to mind when you think of the Star Wars universe.
The one that is the most clear in my head is the one that they run into in Episode 4 in the trash chute. Now, first, I got to give a quick disclaimer. I didn't like the prequels. Mostly because of the computer effects. I just don't like a fully computer-generated monster. I like some practical effects. And there was no practical effects in episodes 1, 2, and 3. So I don't know any of their monsters. Like, I pulled up a blog post here, top 10 best Star Wars monsters, because I was actually trying to get the names of the ones that I did like.
And they actually have a name of that monster in the trash chute?
They have a name.
Of course they would have a name. Everything in this...
Yeah, everything gets a name in the Star Wars universe, and so...
Especially if you're going to make a toy out of something, or if you're going to make an extended universe character out of them, or whatever, you can market.
So, let's see here. It's called the Dianoga. Dianoga? Okay, anybody who watches this show, if you actually know how to pronounce this thing, go ahead and give Nick a quick shout out in the comments. But he's just like the first he's the first monster. Now there's creatures before then, right?
Sure.
They get to Mos Eisley, and there's the big tauntaun looking things that they're riding around. They're obviously not tauntauns. Tauntauns are a hoth. Some sort of creature they're riding around. So if we're separating between creature and monster, this is the first thing that has malice. And actually, it brings up a couple of questions, like why does a brand new space station have a weird creepy monster hanging out in the trash? Why is there so much trash in a brand new space station? But none of those things are ever dealt with. There just happens to be a monster. And honestly, Lucas made this movie thinking nobody's going to watch it. He was a pessimist about what kind of reception to get. Throw a monster in there, and then the movie comes out. It's a huge hit. We create the extended universe, and now, do you bother creating an explanation why this Dianoga thing is in the middle of this trash chute, or do you just let bygones be bygones? So I'm going to give him a pass. I'm going to say, you don't need to explain it. It was there. It created a dramatic moment.
Yep.
It created a little bit of an argument between C-3PO and R2-D2 that was pretty funny. I'm actually a little grossed out when I think about the fact that if they are swimming in urine, Luke Skywalker goes under,
fully immersed.
When beach water hits me, I usually get a mouthful. Just let that sink in for a second, and then never think a happy thought again in your life.
No, definitely not. So the Dianoga or Daanoga, if you're going to write in the comments, maybe make it phonetical so we can actually,
help a brother out.
Yeah, or send us an email or something. But
now, a creature we know a little bit more about, though, is the Wampa.
Yes.
And there are creatures we know more about even than the Wampa, but the Wampa in the Hoth planet that,
Empire Strikes Back, the beginning,
And again, it brings up some questions, like, what's with the malice of the Wampa? Luke's just out there doing his thing. He has the power of the Force. He doesn't sense this Wampa coming up on him, which is, when you think about how the kind of Jedi that Luke becomes in the extended universe, and he can, feel people's,
presence.
Their anxieties. And this Wampa just comes and beats the snot out of him and drags him back to his cave. So it just felt like it came out of nowhere. I mean, what did you think of the Wampa?
It did come out of nowhere, and I think that was one of the characters that reminded me of the abominable snowman in the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, except for this one's eating the Tauntaun. He's got blood dripping, and I'm just like, this is not the adorable, lovable, cuddable Bumble snowman they called it in the Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's like, this is kicking off this movie. It's not going to be like your last Star Wars film. It's there's no messing around in this one. We're gonna have some violence, and it's gonna be real and in your face, and of course,
now,
go ahead.
Have you heard the theory that the Wampa was just a throw-in to give Luke, because Mark Hamill, the character who plays Luke Skywalker, was in some sort of horrific car accident between Episode 4 and Episode 5, and they had to through plastic surgery reconstruct his face.
Really?
And so if you watch the movies back to back, you'll just notice he's kind of a beautiful guy. Episode 4 and Episode 5, he's still a good-looking dude, but obviously there's been a lot of change to his face, and I think the Wampa was a way to bring that into the universe.
So did he break his jaw or cheekbones or something?
His face had a lot of reconstruction surgery.
Wow.
Okay. And I think that's why the Wampa lets him have it.
Gives him that right hook or whatever it was to bring him down, and then he's got that scarring and whatever else I guess you could say to live with, because he shouldn't be aged that much more, but yet he does have a significant difference. That's interesting. I've never heard that one before.
Okay, I thought that's pretty common.
Yeah.
Now here's a question to the universe, to Monster Report universe. On YouTube there are some deleted scenes in the Hoth base of Wampas breaking through the walls and attacking Luke, attacking Leia, attacking Han Solo, and they're running away. And I mean, they were okay. There's an obvious reason these things got deleted. They weren't amazing. But my curiosity is, where would they have fit in the story? Is this like they're trying to escape from the Jedi, or they're trying to escape from the coming Empire? And while they're escaping, hey, let's make it just a little harder. Let's throw some Wampas at them. There's, it's cool to see deleted scenes from the era, but they're given zero explanation as to where this would have fit in the storyline. So.
But yeah, it's just kind of thrown in there almost like a deleted scene that meant to be a deleted scene. Like it really didn't need to be in there. And
which you brought one of those up earlier. Which one was it?
It was Rogue One with the creature in Saul Guerrera has, who just tortures the pilot, the Empire Imperial pilot.
The Borgullet.
Borgullet.
Guys, I am cheating. Like I have only so much RAM, and I've been spending a lot of my time memorizing episodes of Daniel Tiger for these same, malnourished 4-year-olds. But the Bull Gullet, you said like it looked like a deleted scene.
It really just seemed like it was a case of where did it really go in the storyline? I mean, you had a little shell shock from the pilot, the Imperial pilot, when he's in his prison cell. They're trying to talk to him, and he's not there, and slowly he comes back, and it doesn't seem like there's any lasting effects from it. So, what was the point? And
I think my guess is, they really want to show how nervous Saul Guerrera is about spies, about being double-crossed, double agents, and that sort of thing. But like I watched it once by myself, and then I took some high school age students. So I work with students in my professional life. So I took 30 students with me to see this movie. And so now I'm seeing it with new eyes, because I'm wondering, like, if they've never seen it, what's this scene going to communicate to them?
Yeah.
And, it's Saul Guerrera, and he's sitting there, and he's eyeballing the pilot, and he goes, "Bull Gullet! Bull Gullet!" And you're like, is he sneezing? Like, what's, zoom tight? And then he's like, "The Bull Gullet will read your mind. You'll just go crazy." And I was like, this 7th grade girl who's sitting here eating popcorn, whose mom let her come, to this church event, is sitting there like, what's a Bull Gullet? Like what the heck is going on? And actually, if I had one critique of the movie, it was so fast paced at the beginning. You have a critical scene to the story, 4 new characters. Critical scene of the story, 4 new characters. Critical scene of the story, 4 new characters. Boom, boom, boom. Keeps happening.
A lot of location changes too.
Absolutely.
Tons of them. This is another planet, another planet.
Yeah.
And then finally we end up, and I'm trying to look over the planets in my mental notes saying, have we been to any of these planets?
When are they going to get to Geonosis? When are they going to
where's Tatooine? Where's Alderaan? None of these, or Coruscant, any of these planets that we're kind of in our minds used to. They talked about, and I had to keep going back to it. Jeddah, that was one. At least sounds like Jedi, so I could put that in the back there.
And there was. I can't remember the names of the planet. I saw the movie 3 times, and I can't remember the names of these stinking planets.
Saw it twice. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to see it 4 more, I guess. Yeah, that would be a good use of my time.
It's that good, really. Yeah. So, but until it gets out of theaters, and we'll be watching it a ton more when it's on home video. But
I'm gonna watch it 4 more times on home video. I don't think my wife will let me, pull out of my kids' college fund to go see in the movie theater again.
Yeah, but it is one of my favorites too of the universe. And what was really cool about it is that it was really unexpected, because it was a film that considered itself kind of a spin-off. Mm-hmm. A Star Wars story, didn't have a number attached to it. And so it's like, they probably threw a little bit extra money at this too, that they had left over after Force Awakens. And we'll like it, but, it is what it is. And then we're watching it, and I don't know, at least I was just amazed and blown away by it, despite what people were saying out there on social media. I tried to ignore most of that, and I was just like, they got it. They knew what we were after when it comes to a Star Wars film, and I was taken back to A New Hope. I was just taken back to the feelings I got when I first saw that film.
Well, I have a friend who did her MFA, so Masters of Fine Arts in Filmmaking. Huge Star Wars fan, by the way. I should probably interview her sometime. That would be fun. But she was telling me, the problem the prequels had is what usually makes a film great is boundaries and limitations. So if you have a tight schedule to make a movie, or if you have a tight budget, or if the network is breathing down your throat, these are things that were happening in Jaws, right? Their window for filming that summer was closing. They were running out of money because the animatronic shark kept breaking. The studio was like, these cost overruns are insane. We're going to take over production. And because of these limitations, Spielberg had to get creative on the fly, and just take the movie in directions it was never meant to go, just because like we have to finish something.
Yeah.
And it made an amazing film. Star Wars Episode 4 was the same way. And so
over budget, very over budget, as I remember. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know it was over budget. But then you think
yeah.
episodes 1, 2, and 3, the prequels, he owned the studio.
Yeah.
He had an unlimited. He's a billionaire.
Right.
Yeah. And no studio, or not. I'm sorry, not studio. And then, nobody was going to tell him to hurry it up.
Right.
So he didn't have any limitations. So unfortunately, kind of all the worst parts of his filmmaking came to. They had plenty of time to ferment. Whereas, a movie like Rogue One, which looked like it was a bit of an upstart movie. Those limitations is what I think made the movie. And I mean, you're a kaiju film guy. Like, those movies are nothing but limitations. Japanese, tell me, here's my assumption, tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Sure.
Japanese films, they have smaller budgets, smaller audiences. There's just a lot of limitations. I mean, a lot of these things, the iconic stuff was done in the 70s before Star Wars, brought all these new technologies. So, like, talk to me about just the limitations of the technology and how that bred amazing things in the kaiju universe. I gotta imagine those stories are out there.
Well, actually, the most famous one is the original Godzilla, 1954, inspired by the 1933 King Kong.
Okay.
Which was stop motion animation, a little 15-inch figure in miniature sets that can move around and pick up objects, fight with other dinosaurs, and walk around the city destroying things. But they had the problem of they never had done stop motion animation. It was really a trademark of Willis O'Brien and later Ray Harryhausen we got in the United States. It's time consuming. Mm-hmm. They didn't have that kind of time to spend for it, and they didn't have the kind of budget to really learn that technology. We call it technology, in 1950s because computers didn't do any of this stuff. It's all handmade everything. Yeah. And so they said, we're going to go with what's called suitimation, a man in a suit destroying miniature cities, and it wasn't as if that was a cheaper necessarily or easier thing, because it also had its challenges. The first Godzilla suit they made, and it was very elaborate and very detailed, and the man stood in it, and they said, okay, would you walk a little? And he said, and he couldn't move because the thing was so heavy and so just solidly built that he just stood there and he couldn't move at all. And they said, okay, we're going to need to lighten this baby up a bit.
What'd they do?
Oh, they had to just take out some of the detail, and some of the bulk of it overall was just so heavy in the end, actually. And I know this from a writer of a lot of the Godzilla films. In the 1984 film, The Return of Godzilla, that suit ended up weighing 200 pounds itself. So that you think about the man who has to act in something like that, walking around in it, he's got animatronic eyes and mouth.
At least the groaning, would just be a natural part of trying to move.
That's true. Yeah. And even the suit
Take
actors,
two.
Sometimes the suit actor couldn't see well enough, so he would trip, and that sometimes ended up in the movie. Other times, the suit would actually catch fire. Not even kidding. There's in Terror of Mechagodzilla, literally his dorsal fins are on fire, and he's just he's continuing because he doesn't know the difference. He can't see. His head catches on fire in a few other films, actually.
Could you see the rock paper scissors? Like, who's going to tell his wife he died burning to death in the suit? 1, 2, 3, go. Tell her he was a war hero.
That's
tell
right.
her anything else.
Poor guy. Oh, yeah.
So you love monsters. So tell me about this. When they pull out the Raftars, which are these new monsters for episode 7.
Yeah.
So they're moving Raftars, and these are all CG, but they didn't look ridiculous. So tell me, as a guy who studies monsters, who loves monsters, who's seen it done anatomically, who's seen it done fully, with CG, what do you think of the Raftars?
One thing about the Raftars is they had kind of a cool build-up and a comedic build-up to them. I liked that, and I was like, ooh, what are we going to get here? And then they moved so darn quick, you didn't get to see them that much. And, of course, there's always this thing about CGI monsters that we're seeing, CGI Transformers, that this should be such an overwhelming thing that humans just, I don't care if you are Force-inspired or whatever, you can't survive against these things. They're just their instincts, their movements, and all of that should just rip you to shreds. But yet, of course, our heroes, walk away from it without a scratch on them. So I wish you could get a monster that was truly frightening. It doesn't need to move necessarily slower, but can we get a good view of it, a good reveal for it? Sometimes, even in the 2014 Godzilla, he had a good reveal. Check that film out sometime. I don't think you've had the chance to see it yet.
I don't think I have.
Great reveal. And that's what I think in any kind of monster, whether it's he's the primary character like Godzilla, or he's like the I'm blanking, Return of the Jedi, the Rancor.
The Rancor.
Great reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't last long, but
Mm-hmm.
that was a truly frightening scene. And you're like, here's Luke, and he's got nothing, and he's going against this thing that was a practical effect. And I was like, this thing's going to rip him to shreds. But he moves slow enough that you could see him.
What was the monster in the pit in
Jedi?
Jedi.
Oh gosh, you're going to have to look that one up.
Okay,
too.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, but that was another cool monster. Did get the chance to, in the special edition, I'll kind of fill while you're looking up, they gave him a mouth, actually. And
I was going to say, because, they have this fight, so this thing's the Sarlacc.
The Sarlacc, yes.
Because there's this fight against this monster, the Rancor, that, is a dramatic piece of film. You look at the CGI now, it's like, well, it's not great. But for the time, it's pretty convincing. Its death, I think they gave it a good... You don't want the death to be too easy, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't too easy. They legitimately killed this thing after a good long fight. But then the Sarlacc in the original is just this pit, like, don't step in that hole.
It's a hole in the ground.
Which is interesting because in the extended universe, the Sarlacc gets a lot more like build-up. And I think what happened was people love Boba Fett. And I was talking to you earlier. I'm not sure what the draw to Boba Fett is. He's a bounty hunter. People love Boba Fett. And the fact that he dies in the Sarlacc pit, he gets back out again.
In the extended universe,
yeah, people are really curious about the Sarlacc. And so suddenly there's a whole lot more momentum behind this monster. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what led George Lucas to add to it. And suddenly in the re-release where they updated, now it's got like tentacles that are reaching out and grabbing people. And, it makes a noise. I don't know. I'm torn on the Sarlacc because I love the scene. You're finally seeing Jedi Luke be a Jedi. He's got his lightsaber out. He's making it happen. But then you've got this, like, don't step in that hole. There's a monster. You'll be digested for 1,000 years. And I'm like, buddy, the way I'm eating, I'm not going to make it 1,000 years. I'm going to die from a clogged artery at 45. But
and they extended it to give... Yeah, like his stomach is digesting them slowly and all that. So Boba Fett in the extended universe somehow gets out of that, or is
he crawls out somehow, like half dead, and is revived, and then has his own series. I mean, people just love Boba Fett. For some reason, he really captures the imagination of fans.
Yeah.
I think there's an organization called the 501st, which is like a brotherhood of fans who do like community service and cosplay as Boba Fett characters, and like, hey, if you're doing the community service thing, go change the world. What did Gandhi say? You must be the good you want to see in the world. But why Boba Fett? He was not a good guy.
No, he wasn't changing anything in the universe. He was out there collecting bounties to fill his pockets.
Yeah, and understandably, he's angry. He hates the Jedi for beheading his dad in front of him when he's 12 years old.
Yeah.
Suddenly I understand him better.
Yeah, you do understand him better. And honestly, I was fine with Boba Fett being a lot more of a mysterious character and not getting the treatment of, let's see what he looks like without the mask. I would have been fine without knowing that. Mm-hmm. And the fact, I think it was one of those fan service kind of things that they're making the whole clone army based on Jango Fett, which Boba Fett is Jango. If you really come down to it, he's a clone too.
Yeah.
And in the Clone Wars, of course, we get to meet Pipsqueak, little 12-year-old Boba.
Okay.
Trying to take revenge out on Mace Windu for killing his father, and it's like one of those where it's almost like the cartoony swipe, 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 and someone holding you back by the head because you're short and you can't reach. And
and honestly, this universe is big enough that you don't need to tie everything together. Like Rey's parents do not have to be somebody we've met. The universe is big enough. The universe is big enough. That's all I'm going to say. The universe is big enough. Not everything has to be tied up like that. We're talking about monsters today, but so here's a critique I have the Harry Potter universe. I know we haven't talked anything about Harry Potter, but
that's okay.
You could read episodes 1 through 4 and be like, all right, I have a sense of the Harry Potter universe. I know I kind of know what the players are. But then in episode 5, they might introduce a new creature / monster that's like essential to the universe. And Harry is just finding out about him in episode 5.
Really?
And for me, there's just kind of an absurdity that, I mean, I know you want to introduce new things every time you put out a new property. But I gotta imagine there's a balance there that, like, they can't, I don't know what I'm trying to say, other than to say brand new essential characters in the 5th, 6th, 7th installments of a series. That just seems odd. Does this stuff happen in the kaiju world where, like, you know, you're in your 8th time trying to fight Godzilla, and then, oh, by the way, there's a giant shark that eats him that you never knew about in the ocean. Like, does that stuff happen?
There's a little bit of the reverse on that, where you say a continuing storyline adds something new to it that sounds essential. Either it was, I want to say, trying to force its way into the storyline to sell more toys or whatever it's trying to do. In the reverse of Godzilla, they come up with either a new creature or method of killing Godzilla, or stopping him, or nearly kills him, but they never tried again. they came out with the anti-nuclear bacteria in Godzilla vs. Biollante, and it knocks him out, but he landed in the ocean, so his body temperature cooled, so the bacteria didn't get the chance to do its thing, and so he survived that. They attack his secondary brain, and another monster comes in and lands on him and gives his life force to Godzilla. The brain reforms and regenerates, and he's all better again. They never tried again, so I guess they maybe assume that he won't fall for the same trick twice, but you could have at least tried it again.
Yeah, you know, like, that'd be your first barrage.
Yeah, but they try the same things again, which they know don't work. Tanks, laser tanks, who they call maser tanks, which just fire at him, and he just like, it tickles, you know? It's doing nothing to him, and tanks is just, they just bounce right off of him. Check out the Shin Godzilla movie, and you get to see, that his skin is so thick in that, you get a close-up view of these things just literally bouncing right off his skin. It doesn't even penetrate his skin, and it's just a really cool view that you've never gotten the chance to see in the other Godzilla films, whereas they impact him and they blow up. But in this one, it's literally like, you know, what are you trying to do? Throw, you know, toothpicks at me? It's, you know, like like an army of ants trying to bring you down. It's nothing to him. So, you know, I check out Shin Godzilla especially, but, you know, the monsters' weaknesses that they try to exploit in that they never try again. And as far as the Harry Potter series, what was the creature? What was it called? Was it not the Dobby in Harry Potter? That's not what you're talking about.
The creature I'm thinking about, that, like, episode, I think, like, 5, they introduced these invisible horses that carry the luggage to the castle. And then all of a sudden there's this long exposition about what the horses is, and Harry, realizing he's the only one who can see him, along with Luna, like, oh, well, they're the only ones who've witnessed a tragedy.
Yeah.
Therefore, they're the only ones who can see these invisible horses that nobody else can see. It's like, hey, that's a cool character. That's metaphysical. That's right up my alley. But he didn't find out about him until episode 5, or is...
And this should have been a very common thing that everyone should really kind of understand, but it almost sounds like it's forced kind of into there, wedged, I guess you could say.
Now let me ask you this question: are you a guy who really easily suspends reality for your monsters? Here's my question: like, there's a ginormous space slug in episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. You know, they go into this cave to fix the Millennium Falcon, and then they have to fly out, and they figure out they're inside a space slug. It's enormous. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, there's no way there's enough organic material for that thing to eat and become that big, and much less sustain the kind of movement you like. And so, like, you know, I had like a class in biology. I had a class in earth sciences. But suddenly all those things come back to me, and like, there's no way that monster can exist in space. You know, like, who's the guy in the prop department who thought this was a great... And obviously it's a puppet, right? It goes,
right, yes.
So I couldn't suspend reality enough for said character, but is that like, as a kaiju film, you're like, hey, I can suspend all the reality you need me to, just give me some monsters.
One of the thing about at least that creature that you can suspend disbelief, yes, it's got to eat, so you've got to assume that there's something out there for it to eat. Maybe it's somehow it can reach out there and get space-dwelling vessels that come too close, but apparently it didn't for the Falcon. They just landed in his mouth,
Yeah.
and it was his
And then
bowels,
he doesn't even start to digest them yet,
Yeah, I guess that was the start to it, but it happened too slow. So, but the thing about space is, at least for giant monsters that it's got going for you, if it can live in the vacuum of space, okay, let's give it that. It doesn't need to apparently breathe oxygen to live. But what at least space has is the advantage of a zero gravity environment. There is a formula, and some biologists can tell you what that is, that after a certain weight of a creature, and Godzilla doesn't, it doesn't, he can't exist in this world because you have to assume that if bone density and mass is pretty much constant through all creatures, that it will crush itself under its own weight because it's so massive. That's why whales are in the ocean. They're so big, but they can be in the ocean.
I thought they were a beach-loving creature.
Well, they are until they realize that that's not where they dwell. That's not where they're supposed to be.
Okay.
Oops, made a mistake. But at least in space, they can, because there's, it's just like a turtle in a tank.
In Godzilla's fairness, he lives in the ocean most of the time.
Most of the time. He is a sea monster.
Maybe that's why he moves slowly. The arthritis, of being...
It's kicking in.
Yeah. And then that 200-pound suit. My arthritis is killing me.
They have to throw something in there. So in Godzilla's favor, in most of the kaiju monsters from Japan, it's all that they have an energy source that is nuclear or radioactive in origin. And I've said this in my show many times that radiation apparently has beneficial mutations that all monsters and all creatures and superheroes can draw from, but in reality, radiation destroys your cells and kills you.
Well, I don't know. I live close to power lines, and I can eat a whole pizza on my own. So
that's your superpower.
That's my superpower, and I'll prove it to anybody who wants to come over and bring a pizza.
Okay.
So let me ask this question: Jabba the Hutt, is he a monster or is he not a monster? What is the definition of a monster? Do the Hutts fall into?
I think, as far as the definition of monster, that can be in the eye of the beholder. But as far as me, what I would consider a monster is so unlike a human being, not humanoid in a lot of ways, the 2 arms, 2 legs. But if it's going to have the 2 arms, 2 legs, it's got to have something additional to it. So it's got to have some scare factor to it. I feel like Jabba could have that. He's got the size, especially. Doesn't move real fast, so he doesn't really have that kind of...
But he's reasonable, and I guess for me, monsters aren't reasonable. Is that unfair?
So then there's the instinct. Are they animalistic creatures acting on instinct with very little intelligence? I shouldn't say no intelligence, because I consider Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein, because that's the doctor. Frankenstein's monster has a measure of intelligence. He's not just acting on instinct alone. He does have a measure of intelligence, be it very little, but he is still trying to survive, but he's still a monster, in my eyes.
Yeah, but like Jabba is running a criminal empire, that has tattooing wrapped around his finger, so I don't think, I wouldn't put him under monster because he's too intelligent, but he's got monster-like features. That's
monster-like creature, but he's a creature. Yeah. He is of that race. I'm guessing they're called the Hutts, or is that the family?
I think the Hutts are the family.
Oh, the family. So whatever the race is, some Star Wars fan can tell us what the slug race of creatures are called. Yeah. But anyways, those creatures that I guess he's reached actually a size, because at one point he could walk, but he's now reached a size in Return of the Jedi that he's so massive, so big, he's just got to lay on his side like a Roman elegant kind of. I'm trying to think of what you would call it. Sitting there having people feed him grapes all day and give him wine.
Bring me the head of John the Baptist.
Yes, yeah.
So.
Roman ruler, I guess, is, beyond the fact that the visual effects at that time, still very cool. I still love the creature Jabba in Return of the Jedi being a practical effect.
Absolutely.
And then seeing him walk around... I understand why, again, another deleted scene, beyond the fact that they didn't have the technology to replace the actor in New Hope with animated Jabba. But, it's cool for what it was, but it was not necessarily needed, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
now you wanted to you had asserted earlier that maybe the Sith become monsters. And so how would a Sith be, in your mind, start to fit that definition of being a monster?
Now, here's another kind of monster. There's actually, if you really go back to it, there's only I want to say 4 kinds of monsters. Kind of like there's 5 stories in the world: man versus man versus system, things like that.
Man versus pizza.
Man versus pizza, which you win.
Boom.
It's even Norman Bates, Psycho. I would consider him a monster because of what's happening in here. He is a human being, but as far as what's happened to his mind and what evil has crept in there to make him this, just all for himself, for the evil doing kind of thing. I would even almost consider the Joker a monster because he just, like Alfred said in the Dark Knight series, he just wants to see the world burn.
Some people just want to see the world burn.
Yeah, kind of a Nero-style character. And I even think that the Sith, so overwhelmed by the dark side of the Force, I really would throw Darth Maul right into there. Sidious, especially after he becomes the Emperor and he's had the chance to fight with Mace and he's all disfigured and deformed and all that. Darth Vader, honestly, that iconic image of him brings back thoughts of the Frankenstein monster because yet he's almost a creation. He's almost more machine than man.
Yeah. Well, when he's in the back to tank in
Rogue One.
And you just realize he still hurts. He is still in pain. That's dark. He's the way he is because he's emotionally traumatized by the loss of his wife and what he thinks is one child, and then he's got no legs, one arm, and he's burnt top to bottom. Oh, that's dark.
And he lives in a place where he's reminded of that every day. He doesn't live in, wee old Ireland with the nice green pastures all around and sheep running in the field,
With a professional psychologist, we need to move beyond your issues.
No, I live where in the same planet. I'm assuming that was the same planet.
I think it was Geonosis, yeah.
Was it Geonosis?
Is that
No, I don't think that was
What
Geonosis.
was the volcanic planet then?
The volcanic planet we are going to have to look up because Geonosis was different. That was 2 Clone Wars where he lost his hand there, yes, by Count Dooku. But yeah, it's the other planet. It's going to be on the screen right here. The name of that
I had
planet.
thought about that. There are monsters in that. There are Geonosian monsters.
Yes, the Geonosians.
I've only seen episodes 1, 2, and 3. I saw them each one time, and then I just watched episode 1 with my daughter and confirmed to myself that it's awful. Because I was like, I gotta give it a second chance. Suddenly these movies are getting a second life in the fandom. People are like, no, they're good for what they were. I'm like, maybe they were. I'll check it out. They weren't.
No.
And then the Battle of Geonosis is heart-wrenching for me because I read up on it. And it's I guess 200 Jedi showed up and only 30 survive.
Oh, really? Okay.
The firefight. And I was like, gosh, the Jedi just can't win for losing ever.
Yeah.
How are they the most powerful force in the universe when every time they're featured in a movie, lots of them are dying.
Yeah.
Almost needlessly. Clone Wars, they're dying.
They are.
Protocol 66, they all die. The ones who survive are all going to die because by the time you get to Luke Skywalker, none of those guys are left. So,
yeah.
What's going to happen to Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels? What's going to happen to Kana?
Yeah.
They're going to have to die or go rogue or go dark.
Yeah.
Because nobody's left by the time Luke is around.
It's pretty much Yoda and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. When Yoda dies, of course, Luke is the last of the Jedi. He's it. Really, when it comes down to it. So yeah, it goes in a real dark area there. And the prequels, you of course had to know going into it that this trilogy is not going to end on a happy note.
Absolutely,
it's going to be a dark note. Whereas Rogue One, at least if we're okay, I'm in the middle of this movie and I can see where it's going here. Mm-hmm. I think I can see where it's going to end. Even though, spoiler alert, the main characters, the main cast die. Spoilers are welcome on this show. It still ends on a good note.
Yeah.
And for me, I actually saw it a few weeks after the premiere, so literally a few days after the death of Carrie Fisher.
Okay.
And that was just a real, I'd almost say, existential moment for me when I saw the CGI version of her, and I'm just like, yeah, we're back to 1977. There she is with the plans for the Death Star, and Captain Antilles and C-3PO and R2-D2 are on that ship, and this is going to kickstart things, and apparently that's also where Tarkin and the Emperor got the chance to pretty much dissolve the Senate.
Yep.
We're the military, we've got control of things. There's your monster.
Yeah.
The military without any kind of accountability behind it. And
Eisenhower was not wrong about the industrial military complex.
yeah.
Go ahead. If you want to read something scary, Eisenhower's farewell speech to the country.
Yeah, that is the warnings about the military industrial complex. Yeah. The Star Wars universe, gets to combine a lot of those kind of aspects on it, but I wish they would kind of stay light on the politics, whereas the prequels were like, oh, how many votes do we have? And I don't know if we can pass this through, or we're going to have to grant emergency power. And I'm just saying,
how many does it take to end a filibuster?
Yeah, this is what the kids want to see.
Yes.
This is what they want to see. What?
Yeah, they're like Jar Jar Binks because it's a kids movie. I'm like, this is awful, and it's not a kids movie.
The new Shin Godzilla actually.
They cut a guy in half. I mean, everything's cauterized by so he doesn't bleed out, but they cut a guy in half.
Yeah. There's a lot of bureaucracy in Shin Godzilla. It's actually kind of Godzilla versus the democratic process. Actually,
yeah, you can mention that.
But as far as the bureaucracy of things, and then giving Jar Jar he's the real monster. Really, he's the one.
The scariest part about Jar Jar Binks is he might be more qualified as a senator than any current senator.
In the real world, you're saying Jar Jar, because
of the 100 people I can think of in the Senate, I'm like, Jar Jar Binks might actually be more qualified than they.
He might be incapable of lying. He might be. I don't know. And that's one of those things you would say, he's such a fool. And maybe that's what we need. We need a fool in there. Who knows? But
so with that in mind, I am running for Senate in my district, Ohio, going up against. Who am I going up against? Is Portman our senator?
Your senator? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Indiana, so we've got some different ones out here. I know you got your governor. But
who knows?
I don't know. Anyways.
Well, hey, I'm at the end of my ability to tolerate the lovely weather in here, so we might have to start wrapping it up with Do you guys do recommendations of the show?
We can do recommendations in your podcast. Yeah, you usually end up with the chance to maybe throw out a recommendation out there for someone to check this out.
How about this? Here's my recommendation. Somebody get on the Ewoks movie, because there's a couple Ewoks movies. I haven't seen them I'm 35 this year, so I probably haven't seen them in 28 years. Somebody watch the Ewok movie. There's a monster in there. Let's figure out what that monster is. Come back on, get into the YouTube comments, and let us know, what is the Ewok monster? Because I have no idea.
Okay, I have not seen the Ewok movies.
Don't Google it. I want somebody who has the courage to track down the Ewoks movie, actually watch that thing, and then talk about the Ewoks monster. Anybody can do a Google search.
Right.
Let's see the diehards. Let's see the purists get out there and watch something. All right,
you're going to have to find that Ewoks movie for me, too, because I have actually never seen... There are 2 Ewoks movies?
I think it was sequeled.
I have never seen the Ewoks movies. I've seen the darn awful holiday special, and once...
I haven't even seen
it. I don't think once was really... merited.
It might have been one too many.
One was one too many, exactly.
I think I said the first 4 minutes on YouTube, and I was like, I can't do this. This is ruining it for me.
Yeah, check out the comedic reviews out there of it. It makes it much better.
Okay.
As far as recommendations that I would maybe throw out there for people, of course, we were talking Star Wars quite a bit, and I'm in the middle of the Clone Wars series, which is on Netflix. With the fact that you do kind of know, if you've watched the films, you know that this is between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So you really are watching these episodes with a lot of the head knowledge and heart knowledge of this is not going to end well. But there are some really compelling characters and story in those episodes. Actually, a few of them are snoozers, I'd say, but there's, for the most part, a lot of good action.
Let me ask this question. In your opinion, this is my opinion as I think about it. The Clone Wars is really about the failure of the Jedi.
In a lot of ways, because...
the Jedi were unable to live up to what they aspire to be. Like, Ahsoka is not wrong. No spoilers, but just when you get there, Ahsoka's not wrong. The Jedi are failing to live up to who they meant. I mean, they can't stop this thing from happening, even though they're elbow deep in trying to stop it.
That is a really cool aspect, and that's a really cool character that develops through this, and a truth that's drawn out as a result. Of course, with foresight, the audience is saying, "Do you know what's going to happen? Do you know who you're working for?
Yeah.
You know that he's pitting the two sides against each other so that he can come to power."
Yeah.
You know that, and you know it watching it the entire time. It somewhat would take away a little bit from me in the series knowing that fact, but if you haven't seen the films, it's still a good action kind of story. I will say this, that the animation, pretty good. I like the voice work in most of the characters, and I like the voice and character of Anakin Skywalker better than Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen ever did in creating. I don't even know what kind of character they were trying to create, because the Clone Wars did better, and two actors, one doing the voice and one doing the body movements in the original trilogy, did a better Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader than...
I professionally work with teenagers, and even the 7th grade girls are more emotionally put together than Hayden Christensen's version of Anakin Skywalker. So,
well, you know, there's my recommendation. I really appreciate the Clone Wars. I haven't had the chance to see Rebels, so that's going to be probably my next viewing.
Episode, or the first big episode. You know what? I'll just lend you season 1.
There you go.
All
okay.
Right. So next time we get together, I'll bring season 1 for you.
And we'll probably have a report on some of these things out there, or we'll have another episode completely different. Maybe
I won't be dressed like a Jedi. I'm not trying to go all Jedi. It was just a little chilly in here, so yeah.
It is, yeah.
Maybe I'll be a dark Jedi.
So mysterious. How do the Jedi see anything under those hoods? I mean, they always just walk in and their eyes are down, and
they've got the power of the Force.
They've got the.
That's not the way this works.
That's
not how any of this works.
The Force. It's the thing that answers all the questions. So,
until next time, guys, may the Force be with you.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Monster Report. I'd like to thank Andrew for being on this show and enduring the cold of my garage where our green screen is set up out here.
It's not Nick's fault. We're in the middle of Indiana, and there's not a hill for 1,000 miles. Every wind gust brings the temperature down like another degree.
It's nice and cold. You probably can see our breath out there. So thank you guys so much for enduring through this little talk we've had, and we will catch you next time.
See you later.